feel they want me.
Curtis Mayfield, Hard Times, here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Mimi Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Juan?
Well, The Nation magazine has just published a major investigative report titled Katrina's Hidden Race War. The article examines how a group of white vigilantes in the predominantly white New Orleans neighborhood of Algiers Point shot at least 11 African-American men in the days after Hurricane Katrina. Local police have never conducted investigations into the shootings. The author of the article, A.C. Thompson, will join us in a few minutes, but first we turn to a video produced by the Nation Institute and Hidden Driver. It is narrated by A.C. Thompson and features interviews with some of the victims of the vigilante violence.
When Hurricane Katrina ripped into New Orleans, most people tried to flee. In one neighborhood, however, a band of 15 to 30 people refused to evacuate. With the police department crippled, these people amassed weapons and began patrolling the streets. Before long, bullets began to fly. Over the past 18 months, I've interviewed figures on all sides of the gunfire. The gunmen, people who were shot and survived, and witnesses to the violence. Severed from the rest of New Orleans by the river, Algiers Point is an insular, predominantly white neighborhood within the larger Algiers district, which is mostly African American. As word spread that Algiers Point was dry, desperate people fleeing flooded zip codes began headed toward the West Bank.
I never thought that I would witness what I did during Katrina. You know, not in Algiers Point. Not among some individuals that I classified as neighbors.
We're blocking both ends of the street. This is during Hurricane, Katrina. They're doing looting. They're looting the businesses right now, and we figure they'll eventually get around to looting the houses.
Fearing an influx of outsiders, the gunmen of Algiers Point barricaded their streets. Malik Rahim is one of a handful of blacks living in Algiers Point. In the days after Katrina, he says he was threatened at gunpoint by several white neighbors.
I couldn't walk through Algiers Point.
You couldn't?
Oh, no, I could stay on my block. But if I would have turned that corner, I would have been in a firefight.
Malik's friend, Reggie Bell, was also confronted at gunpoint.
After they caught up with him, they told him to run. And if he would have ran, they was going to kill him. They were going to shoot him in the back. And he told him, he said, hey, man, he said, I live right here. He told him to run.
At the ferry terminal in Algiers Point, the National Guard established an evacuation zone and began busing flood victims to Houston. On September 1st, 2005, Donnell Herrington left his home and began walking toward the ferry terminal with his cousin, Marcel Alexander, and a friend, Chris Collins. To get to the evacuation zone, the trio had to walk through Algiers Point.
You know, I was talking to my cousin and our friend, and I was telling them that, yeah, we finally about to get out of here. You know, I was talking, because my cousin was on the side of me, on the right side, and I looked down at my arms and everything, and because you know, some of the shots hit me in my arm, my chest, my neck, my stomach, and you know, I just saw blood everywhere.
As I'm trying to pick him up, the shots again, so I fell. And Donnell trying to get up, and we always trying, we panicking now.
And he was like hollering, like, you okay, you all right? And he was, you know, like I said, he was pretty hysterical, man. And when I saw the guy, when I actually recognized the guy with the shotgun, you know, and it was like he was reloading or something.
As I'm trying to pick him up, they coming towards us with the gun. Like probably, like at that time, like probably 2 or 3 of them.
And so now I'm trying to get out this guy, trying to get away from him, you know?
2 of them coming my way, and 1 of them coming at Donnell way. But the last I saw Donnell, and I'm running, me and Chris running, and it was like, oh, we gonna get you niggas.
I ran up into the corner, and they had these 2 guys in the car. They had these 2 white men in the car, an older white guy and another, you know, a younger white guy. And they had their shirts off. I can remember, you know. And they were like in a small pickup truck.
We know y'all, what y'all was doing. We saw y'all.
Marcel goes on to say the vigilantes thought he was a looter.
And You know, I'm asking these guys, I'm like, help, you know, help me, you know what I mean? And the guys was like, I can remember him telling me, we can't help you, you know? Get out of here, you know what I'm saying? And one of the guys, one of them, I can remember one of them calling me a nigger, you know, get out of here, nigga. We can't help you, we liable to shoot you ourselves. That was the last thing I heard him say.
Eventually, Herrington got help. A black neighbor drove him to the hospital, where doctors pulled 7 lead pellets out of his neck and repaired a large hole in his jugular vein, saving him from death.
Some of the white men involved in the vigilante group have publicly bragged about taking part in the violence, but none of them has been arrested. In 2005, several of the men talked about their activities in the Danish documentary Welcome to New Orleans.
How do you protect yourself?
You had to do what you had to do. You know, if you had to shoot somebody, you had to shoot somebody.
No, we had...
That's simple.
We had looters.
It was great.
It was great.
It was like pheasant season in South Dakota.
Right on.
If it moved, you shot it.
That's not a pheasant. We're not in South Dakota. What's wrong with this picture?
We walked the streets. We had sidearms. You know, you had no choice. It was that bad. Police said just put them on the side because they knew they were doing wrong, you know. He said just put them to the side. That's all we could do.
In Chicago.
I am no longer a Yankee.
No.
I earned my wings.
He understands the N-word now.
I learned my wings.
Like it with all the looters and stuff.
What looters?
You didn't see all the looters?
We had 3. They left here, one without a T-shirt, and the other's full of buckshot. And we have the T-shirt to prove it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
We shot them. What happens in other parts of this state, I don't know about. But over
we don't
here,
care about. But in this neighborhood, we take care of our own.
We sent them back into wherever they came from and said, don't come back.
That's from the Danish documentary Welcome to New Orleans. A.C. Thompson is with us here in our Firehouse studio in New York, the award-winning journalist on the staff of ProPublica. His article, Katrina's Hidden Race War, appears in The Nation magazine. His reporting on New Orleans was directed and underwritten by the investigative fund at the Nation Institute. ProPublica provided additional support, as did the Center for Investigative Reporting and New American Media. We're also joined by Donnell Herrington in New Orleans. He nearly died on September 1st, 2005, after being shot by a white vigilante while he was heading to an official evacuation site at the Algiers Point ferry terminal. I wanted to ask you, Donnell Herrington, as you watched the last clip from Welcome to New Orleans, what were your thoughts? What were your feelings? Donnell, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah. To answer your last question, you know, I felt pretty sad. It made me feel pretty sad. For me to even watch that particular clip, it was hard. I was heartbroken when I saw that.
And Donnell, after you were shot, what was the response of authorities to what had happened to you? Did you try to get some action by police or authorities afterward?
Actually, I did. Actually, I can remember one of the doctors saying we need to get some officers in that area, and that was the last I heard. But under my knowledge, I don't think that they ever did.
And no one ever came to interview you about what had happened from the police department?
No.
You have been investigating this, A.C. Thompson, for over a year now. Katrina's Hidden Race War, saying, as everyone was talking about black looters, we're talking about white vigilantes terrorizing the black community. Lay out the scope of this.
You know, what we did over the span of 18 months is we tried to recreate the history. We tried to go back and figure out exactly what happened in basically the 2 weeks after the storm hit. And so what I did is I tracked down people like Donnell Herrington. I tracked down people who admitted to being involved in the gunfire, the vigilantes themselves. I tracked down eyewitnesses, people like Malik Rahim, and I asked everyone, what did you see? Don't tell me about what you heard about. don't tell me about what people told you about. Tell me about what you saw, what you were involved in, what you experienced. And what I came to believe from my interviews was that at least 11 people, all of them African-American males, were shot in the Algiers Point neighborhood during about the week after the storm hit. That information was bolstered, one, by a trauma surgeon, the doctor who operated on Donnell, who said, hey, we had a whole stream of people in our emergency room who'd been shot, some of them fatally. He said at least 5 or 6 non-fatal gunshot wounds, 3 fatal gunshot wounds. And he said, look, I don't think any of these cases have been investigated. I think they went unreported. As well, we looked